Okay, I think we'll call this meeting to order. We're missing a couple players here tonight. Dan is tied up with some family issues, health issues. And Nicholas is, I'm not sure where he is. He's not around these parts of the country. And he's supposed to join us by Zoom, and maybe he's doing that right now, is he? So we'll get started with the meeting. So just before we get into the nuts and bolts of the meeting, we've got a fairly heavy agenda here tonight. We'll just take a moment, council, and I guess if you so wish, bow our heads for a moment of reflection. Okay, thank you. So the first item then is accepting the agenda as it was circulated. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Duck and Councillor Foster. I take it there's no additions to the agenda, so I think it's good the way it is. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Does anybody have a conflict of interest with the agenda? If you find that you're sliding down a slippery slope later on in the meeting, just declare it at that time. So we have a number of items on the consent agenda here. I believe there's 11. Is there anything, actually there's 13, sorry, 13. Is there anything there that anybody wants pulled or further discussed or has a question about it? Councillor Fournier?
Quite frankly, I was sort of wondering about the Township Economy 4.1 resolution regarding prohibition of persons with criminal records from municipal council. I can see where they're going with that, but it seems to be sort of contrary to the whole point of prison. Somebody goes to prison, they do their time, and then they're free to do other stuff as a citizen. It just seems like a bad precedent for that council to be proposing we start setting. That was the only thing that I had to mention.
Well, I guess there's two things you can do. We could pull it, or if you just leave it in the consent agenda and it just slides through and we're not endorsing it or anything. It's whatever you would like, however you'd like to handle it. I guess we could do that, can we, Andre? We've never done that before, disapproval. We usually pull it to support it, but yeah, whatever. We'll see where it goes. Okay. Anything else there? Anybody had any questions on? Okay, so we'll deal with consent agenda. We'll everything from 4.2 to 4.13. Do we have a mover and a seconder to accept the consent agenda? Steve and Doug. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Okay, 4.1. Andrew, I'll let you do your little bit here and then you can move it and we'll see if we get a seconder.
My point is basically just that if somebody does have a criminal record, then they're not currently in jail. It's something that they already served their time for. And the number of times that all of us don't get stopped for speeding or for doing minor little things that we could get in significant trouble for eventually. I just think it's a bad precedent to be set. It's similar to striking people from voter rolls for having a criminal record. And also, although you don't necessarily want a criminal on council, when it comes to some of the issues that your community might have to deal with when it comes to drug use or crime or whatever else, that might be the perspective that you actually want to have. Okay. So you might be excluding some wisdom from your council by doing that.
Okay, you want to move that we support it? Okay, do we have a seconder for that? Am I doing something wrong, Andre? You're looking at. Well, yeah, you're not supporting the resolution. You want staff to send a response that we don't agree with it. Not very often. Audrey?
If Councillor Fournier would like to present an alternate motion to council advocating for allowing persons with criminal records to not be removed, to not be made ineligible.
Have you got kind of what you want there? I'll maybe get you to read it and then we'll ask for a second. Make sure that it's what Councillor Fournier wants. Sorry.
So it would be that the Council of the Municipality of West Perth. Sorry, my apologies. Just double checking.
Not endorsed from the township of London. Yeah, that was right. And sure.
I just noticed in here that it says federal offenses, which I'm not sure what provincial and federal offense, what do federal and offenses include? Are they, like, I take it they're more serious than provincial, so what kind of, like, I'm not really clear on what we're trying to vote down if we don't really understand what.
No.
Mr. Mayor, I'll give it a shot. How about that? Certainly, the municipalities are features of the province, and so under this particular item, that that there are items related to the provincial government and provincial offenses that where, as it says in here, that the record could be pardoned from. The more serious offenses are federal offenses. It doesn't sort of doesn't really say or give you some examples. They're talking a little bit around the Criminal Code or Narcotic Control Act specifically. And so what they're asking for is that they would, if there's a federal offense against them, that they would be allowed to stand for election. So what the councillor is saying is that he doesn't agree with the with their proposal, that this recommendation that would allow a municipal, it says municipal councillor, reeve, or mayor to be a municipal candidate if it's a federal offense. It's really what they're saying.
Mr. Mayor, Clerk Hobson has a resolution that he's worded out for Councillor Fournier. He's agreeable, so that the Council of the Municipality of West Perth support the current wording of the Municipal Act and Municipal Elections Act, so that people with a criminal record who have not had their record pardoned from the RCMP database by order of the Governor General of Canada are not prohibited from becoming a candidate in municipal elections or holding office in municipal council.
Clerk Hobson has a way with words.
Okay. The other way is you're not supporting the resolution they sent. Okay, so Councillor Fournier has moved that motion. Do we have a second? Seconded by Councillor Foster. Okay, any further discussion on that? All those in favor of Councillor Fournier's motion? Those opposed? The opposed have it, so that's defeated. Okay, moving on. We do have a report from the planning department with regards to application for consent, and it's B41-23, 140 Nelson Street in the ward of Mitchell. And John is here, John Weiss, and he's going to walk us through this one.
Thank you, Mayor McKenzie and Council. So before you today is a consent to sever application. It's located at 140 Nelson Street. It's on the north side of Marlborough Street, and it's on the west side of Nelson Street, with the red star on the slides. So the proposed severed lot, so the proposal offers up one new severed lot as well as the retained lands. The severed lot would be 482 meters squared with frontage on Nelson Street, and the retained portion would be 574 meters squared, again with frontage on sorry, that should say Nelson Street. The lot contains, the retained lands contain an existing residential dwelling. So in order for this severance to go through, one of the conditions of consent would be that they obtain a minor variance for the retained lands. And the slide in front of you showcases the 3 items that would need to be obtained through the Committee of Adjustment. So essentially, they would need a reduction by about 20 centimeters in the lot frontage requirements, reduction in the minimum exterior side yard requirements, again about 20 centimeters, and then a reduction in the minimum interior side yard requirements. The 3 lines on the slide showcase where those reductions would take place. So the minor variance relief will be addressed at the Committee of Adjustment, but upon first inspection, the relief required is considered appropriate as it allows for the gentle infilling of the neighborhood, and it reflects the existing conditions on the retained lands and provides adequate space for the owners to meet the intention of each of these specific reliefs being sought. The property is designated residential in the Mitchell Ward official plan. The proposal is considered infill development and intensifies the existing parcel. Through obtaining the required minor variance, spatial form and sizing of the proposal will be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. So both the severed and retained lands meet the minimum lot area requirements in the R2 zoning in the West Perth zoning bylaw. The proposed development aids in the municipality's 15% goal of new housing units occurring through intensification. And the proposed development is within the Mitchell Ward official plan guideline for density requirements. The Mitchell Ward official plan guideline is 10 to 25 units per hectare, and this one would be about 20.7. So as a condition of consent, the owners will be required to enter into a development agreement for the severed property. Essentially, the development agreement will talk about the replanting of trees that needs to happen, municipal servicing that needs to go in, financial requirements for those servicing stubs as well as providing access and removing of an existing shed that's on the property. Here's a condition that's not always present for infill development. So I just wanted to highlight it. It's from Bell Canada. Essentially, they have existing infrastructure on site and they wish to obtain some easements to be able to go in and fix some things if necessary. So as a condition of consent, the owners will need to provide 2 easements essentially over the severed property so that Bell Canada can go ahead and fix the existing infrastructure if necessary. So notice of the application was given on December 20th to neighboring landowners. We have received a comment from a neighbor who wishes this application be turned down. That is why the recommendation is to the Land Division Committee. This will need to go to the Land Division Committee and it won't be able to receive delegated approval. So at the February Land Division Committee meeting, this will go for public meeting to address these concerns. And I can take any comments or questions.
Okay, thank you, John. Questions, Councillor Fournier?
I can't quite find it in the document that's in the agenda, but there was some mention of this only being an approval for a 1-story development. And I was wondering why it was being restricted to 1 story, if that was just the plan that I believe Mr. Culligan had.
Yeah, through you, Mayor McKenzie, that's a great question. It was the plan that was proposed. 1-story development has a different requirement for a side yard setback than say a 2-yard or 2-story dwelling. So it's kind of just to be more compatible because they need a reduction. That's essentially the reason.
Any other
Thank you.
questions with regards to this application? Okay, if not, we do have a recommendation here. And it is that the Council of Municipality of West Perth recommend that the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate approve consent file B4123, and that the council forward the conditions listed in the staff report dated January the 29th, 2024 to the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate for consent file B4123 affecting the property legally described as Lot 274, Plan 339 in the municipality of West Perth, 140 Nelson Street. Do we have a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Duck and Councillor Rose. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you, John. Okay, continuing with planning, we have Susanna Reed with us to update us on the official plan. And this is probably going to be Susanna's last time with us in West Perth. So welcome, and we're sorry to see you go.
Thank you very much, Mayor McKenzie. Good evening, Council. It's certainly been an honor to work at County and contribute to developing the official plan. And I'm very pleased to be here representing the Planning Department and presenting an overview of the official plan to West Perth tonight. So the County Council received the draft official plan at their December 21st meeting of County Council. And in receiving it, County Council has provided direction to proceed with the public consultation. So we're entering into the public consultation now. There will be an open house at West Perth next Wednesday, February 7th from 4:30 to 8:30. And there will be a presentation from the WSP planning consultant at 5:30. So that notice has gone out. Everybody is welcome. So here is an overview of the planning framework, which informs the development of a new official plan. So everything, as the CIO mentioned earlier, everything that the municipality does is the municipality is a creature of the province. So everything is legislated through provincial legislation. It's the Planning Act that legislates planning in Ontario. So through the legislative authority of the Planning Act, the province prepares a provincial policy statement, and then the municipal official plan then follows the policy direction as established by the provincial policy statement. In Perth County at this time, we have a official plan, which was initially prepared in 1999. Then we also have a Listowel official plan, a Milverton official plan, and a Mitchell official plan. So the new official plan will replace the county official plan as well as the Mitchell official plan, the Milverton official plan, and the Listowel official plan. So there will be one official plan in Perth County, provided it is approved. Before I get into the policies, there were 3 background studies that were prepared in order to inform the policies. The Perth Natural Heritage System study was prepared by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. It was first created in 2018 and then subsequently updated in 2019 with updated air photos. What the Natural Heritage System study involved was delineation through air photos of the natural heritage features across the county. This document was prepared through the direction of a Natural Heritage Reference Manual that's prepared by the province and is consistent with the direction for protecting natural heritage features through the provincial policy statement. The planning consultants, WSP, also prepared a policy directions report through consultation with the public and informed by the existing official plans as well as the provincial policy statement. And finally, there's also a comprehensive review, which was prepared by Watson and Associates, a team of land economists. And this document is both population and employment projections for a 30-year planning horizon. And then with that document, Watson and Associates projected how much land would be required for a 25-year planning horizon, which is the time period specified by the provincial policy statement. So I'm jumping immediately to the land allocation as updated by in the new provincial policy statement. Sorry, updated by the comprehensive review, new Perth County draft Perth County official plan. So the column at the left are the vacant land designations and the residential designation by service settlement areas. And the column at the right are the neighborhood designations in the new official plan. So the numbers for Mitchell are comparable. Essentially, the vacant land in Mitchell isn't changing substantially. And then the middle column is the vacant land surplus or deficit as identified in the comprehensive review. For the employment land, again, on the left is the industrial land supply, 32 hectares or 79 acres. On the right is the vacant land in the new official plan. And then in the middle column is the amount of land identified as a need through the comprehensive review. So now I'm moving on to the growth management and settlement area categories, which is section 2 of the official plan. So the growth management policies include monitoring policies, how the official plan will be monitored over time, and changes in forecasted population and employment growth will be reviewed on an ongoing basis. So that will be updating the comprehensive review as prepared by Watson and Associates every 3 to 5 years. A report on land consumption, density, and intensification every 3 to 5 years, and that will be tallying the types of applications like the consent application that was previously reviewed, how many infill lots are created. Or additional residential units would be another example of intensification. Monitoring designated residential, employment, and commercial land supply. So the amount of land that's available and designated for those uses. And then another policy, this isn't a monitoring policy, but this is also in section 2, is that local municipalities are directed to prepare master servicing plans, which I know there's a lot of work been done for the servicing plan for the employment lands, particularly in Mitchell. Section 2 also refers to residential density targets. Watson and Associates reviewed the density of the existing development across the county, which, if I'm recalling correctly, I think is about 86% single detached dwellings. So this direction, 52% low density, 31% medium density, 17% high density, is a stretch goal for the development community in Perth County. The mayor might have more to say about these numbers, as there was a significant discussion about these numbers at the December 21st County Council meeting. The intensification policies are establish a goal of 10% of new residential units shall be through intensification, and a minimum of 5% employment intensification on employment lands, and that would be evaluated every 3 to 5 years. So within the urban settlement area, the serviced urban areas, within the settlement area, there are 4 different types of settlement areas, and that's what's on the screen now. There are serviced urban areas, villages and hamlets, rural clusters, and an urban fringe designation. So starting with the serviced urban areas, this includes Listowel, Milverton, Mitchell, Shakespeare, and Atwood. Those are the areas where municipal water and sewage are available. And the designations, the map on the right-hand side of the screen is for Milverton. You can see that there are specific designations for Milverton, different colors. Those are referred to as designations in the official plan. Villages are all pink. Essentially, that is the village designation is all pink, a single designation. So when development is proposed in the serviced urban area, the official plan is referred to a neighborhood development, for example, can happen in a neighborhood area through rezoning. Someone is proposing to change neighborhood to commercial development, then an official plan amendment would be required as well. So this is different from the village designation, where commercial, industrial, light industrial, and residential use can occur with a zoning bylaw amendment within a hamlet designation. The hamlets are on the screen now. Sorry, the arrow points in the North Perth map to the hamlet designation in the municipality of North Perth. Simply to say that there is not a specific map for each one of these hamlet areas. They're captured in the broader municipal mapping with the land use designations. And that the list of places on the screen now are all of the areas in the county that are designated hamlet. Hamlets are, the development policies are very similar to villages in that development occurs by a zoning bylaw amendment. And then finally, there are rural cluster designations. These are infill designations in the existing official plan. And they recognize small communities, crossroads throughout the communities or throughout the county where there's existing non-farm development. Finally, there are urban fringe designations, which are considered settlement areas. They are east and west of Stratford and east, west, and south of St. Mary's. On these, it recognize existing development on private services in proximity to a neighboring urban serviced area. Moving now then to the candidate lands. This is a new idea for the official plan and applies to both Mitchell and Shakespeare in that there are lands where, I'll refer to Mitchell because it's more relevant to West Perth. The lands immediately east of the industrial development, there has been a lot of work done in that area by West Perth to prepare the infrastructure for that area. So there are policies which recognize this work and state that when new industrial development is to occur or where the existing industrial park is built out, that this is where the municipality intends future industrial use to go. So this is not a designation at this point, and it's flagged in the official plan. Okay, so now I'm moving on to the land use designations. And I'm going to walk through each one of these sections at a high level, starting with the serviced urban areas. So this is the land use designation map for Mitchell on the right, and you'll recognize the air photo of Mitchell on the left. So the white text within the air photo are the land use designations and correspond with the different colors of the map on the right. So the yellow, light yellow color is a neighborhood designation. That replaces the existing residential designation in the current Mitchell official plan. And it differs in that in the existing official plan, only residential development is permitted. In the new neighborhood designation, it's proposed to permit residential as well as local commercial, like local convenience stores and institutional uses. So that would be like churches or community halls, community centers, schools, arenas would be all considered in the institutional uses. So all of those uses can happen in the neighborhood designation. The urban mixed use designation is in the, do you have a pointer? Oops. No. The urban mixed use designation is the pink with hatched lines through it in the downtown core and recognizes the commercial use in the downtown core, and it's mixed in that it also permits residential uses. The corridor commercial is the dark purple, permitting highway commercial, as well as high density residential uses. So like apartment buildings. Employment is, you recognize the Mitchell Employment or Industrial Park in the southeast. That is the employment designation permitting industrial type uses. The institutional uses at the north of Mitchell where the schools are and the Ritz Villa. And then finally, the open space designation are the parklands. So here's the same slide without the text on it. And I thought it was a nice example or nice way to look at the designations in the official plan and compare it to a drone photo of downtown Mitchell, you can see the pink area, the urban mixed use designation, and it corresponds with the downtown area of Mitchell. And then immediately abutting downtown Mitchell to the north, it moves into the residential area, which is designated neighborhood in the current Mitchell, designated neighborhood in the new official plan, currently designated residential. The other thing that you can see quite clearly with this map is the floodplain designation as it goes through Mitchell. And you can see the floodplain on the air photo as well. And that is an area where development is not permitted in order to protect development from flooding. Okay, so now I'm moving out of the settlement areas into the agricultural designations. So this is all of the white land on the map now is an agricultural designation, and there's a strong level of protection for agricultural land in the official plan, as is informed by the provincial policy statement, which protects agricultural land for agricultural purposes. So in the agricultural designations, the uses that are permitted are farms or agricultural uses, agricultural, commercial, or industrial uses. So that would be like feed mill or implement dealerships related to farms, and on-farm diversified uses. So if there is a farm, a business that is unrelated to the farm can be cited there in order to provide another income stream for that farm household. The agricultural policies also recognize existing recreational and institutional uses. They provide policies for new recreational and institutional uses to be considered. And they also provide direction for existing undersized lots of record. That is, if there is an agricultural policy that is smaller than a farm, that a residential use can be permitted through a zoning bylaw amendment. And then the other significant policy direction in the agricultural policies is to direct non-farm uses to the settlement areas. And that is all about protecting agricultural land. The mineral, aggregate, and petroleum resources policies, this is an appendix mapping in the official plan, so it's not, these are not designations, these show the licensed pits and quarries. Appendix, and it's referred to as Appendix 1. It doesn't show the licensed pits and quarries. I'm reading the slide. It shows the primary and secondary aggregate resources. And this is mapping that's available from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, and shows where the aggregate resources are in the county. So if there is someone who wants to develop a new or launch into a new aggregate operation, then an official plan amendment is required, as well as an aggregate license from the MNR. Back to the natural environment policy. So I made reference to the natural heritage system study at the beginning as one of the background studies. So the mapping in the natural heritage system study informs the natural environment designations in the official plan. And council may be aware that in order to vet the mapping, there has been a year-long consultation process for the mapping in the natural environment mapping. So everybody who where the natural environment designation on their property changed or increased by an acre or more in the rural areas, or 1% or more in the urban areas, received a notice in the mail and was invited to have a conversation or a site visit with a planner. And at their request, they could also have a visit from a consulting ecologist to learn more about the ecological features on the properties. As a result of that consultation, there were many maps changes. So if there was a natural heritage feature, or that would be a woodlot or a wetland on a property, and then following the site visit, it was confirmed that that feature was not there, the natural environment designation was adjusted. So that green area was removed from the map. The other change that happened was the meadows and thickets were shown in the natural heritage system studies mapping. And as a result of comments received through the public consultation, the meadows and thickets have been removed from the natural environment designation. So it's been a very thorough process. about 2,700 people received notices in the mail. About, I believe it's about 118 people received site visits from a planner, and 25 people received site visits from an ecologist. And there are many mapping changes as a result. So be one of the pieces that we're looking forward to comments through the open houses. And yeah, I think that it's a strong part of the document, with the intention behind the natural environment policies is recognizing the significance of natural environment features on the landscape for addressing erosion and contributing to a carbon sink and ecological functions. Okay, so then moving on to section 4 of the official plan, these are policies that apply generally to the entire county. And I'm going to touch on 2, which are specifically relevant, that where there were more conversations with county council and the steering committee through the development of these sections. And those are housing and the natural hazards policy. So section 4.2 and 4.5. So here is the housing affordability forecast by tenure for the next 10 years. And this information was prepared by Watson and Associates for a housing needs assessment in order to contribute data to the HAF grants that were submitted. So in looking at the left-hand column, the household income refers to, as it says, to the household income. So with the very top line then is less than $20,000. So for households that are making less than $20,000, the home ownership, the dwelling costs that household can afford is less than $60,000, with a rent being less than $500 a month. And then the report also provides how many of these dwellings are needed in the Perth County community. And then you can see as you continue through the left-hand column, household income, how many homes are required for each income level. So the area now with the dotted yellow around it shows that there is a total of 3,200 homes that are required in the next 10 years. And this also breaks down the rent levels that every income level can support or can afford, and the price point of new dwellings or dwellings, not necessarily new, but dwellings for sale that the community can support. So this information is in the official plan and will play an important job of tracking new housing development going forward for the next 10 years. And in considering the type of housing that's needed, I mean, council will be familiar with this because you're regularly receiving applications for new residential development. So you have a very active role, and I'm sure lots of thoughts around the need for housing and the type of housing that's being built. This spectrum continuum is also from the Watson study. So it provides both what is market housing. So that's housing that is in the right-hand column, the 3 right-hand columns, the housing that is built through market forces. So what developers are building. And then on the left, what's circled in the box is non-market affordable housing. So that is not housing that's built through the development community, but instead is built by the not-for-profit sector, for example, or social services housing, or housing that's receiving some sort of government support. And you can see by looking at the spectrum on the left that there are many different types of non-market affordable housing. You can have emergency housing or homeless shelters. You can have supportive housing for people with a particular type of need. There's social housing, which is housing that's owned by the municipality. And then on the right-hand side, market housing, there is private ownership. There's secondary rental housing. So that would refer to an individual who owns a unit, a home, and then rents out a secondary unit in their house, versus primary rental housing, which would be someone who owns a a small apartment building, for example. So there are two sets of policies. 4241 offers policies for affordable market housing. Not all of the market housing is going to be affordable, and some of it will be. So there are policies for affordable market housing, and then there are policies for non-market affordable housing. So that non-market affordable housing will be the housing that is able to address the needs of people who are looking for housing that is perhaps $500 a month rent. So walking through these two sets of policies, then affordable market housing refers to the housing and homelessness strategy that is in place for Stratford, Perth, and St. Mary's, and establishes a goal of 20% of all new residential development being affordable in the serviced urban areas, and that purpose-built rental units are encouraged as affordable market housing for low and moderate income households. So the observation that perhaps rental housing is more attainable, more affordable by low and moderate income households. Non-market affordable housing then is housing that would be built by not-for-profit organizations, prioritizes municipally owned land, that perhaps there could be partnerships with municipalities where municipalities own land, that there would be a collaboration across government and not-for-profit sectors, and that the zoning bylaws permit the provision of housing options for rooming houses, retirement residences, residential care facilities, group homes, and other long-term housing forms in every settlement area where residential uses are permitted. So that is a high-level review of the direction in the affordable housing policies. And then council, I'm guessing, will be familiar with the additional residential unit provisions or permissions in the recent amendments to the Planning Act. So a maximum of 2 additional residential units are permitted on any residential property within service settlement areas. And then additional residential units may also be permitted in village and hamlet designations and the urban fringe designation through a zoning bylaw amendment where it's possible to demonstrate that they'll be able to provide water and private water, private well, and private septic system with no concerns to the groundwater table. That's the requirement for a Hydro-G study, is demonstrating that the septic effluent isn't going to cause any concerns for existing neighboring wells. Likewise, there are additional dwelling unit policies for lands designated agricultural, with similar policies for those in the village and hamlet designations, and an additional requirement that minimum distance separation requirements from neighboring barns is satisfied, as well as being within the cluster of residential, any existing house building, so that they're relatively close together. So I'm moving on now from housing to natural hazards. And you had the chance to see the floodplain designation in Mitchell with the earlier slide. This is the map on the left is Listowel. So that shows the blue floodplain designation as it goes through Listowel. So that is the approach for the natural hazard lands or flood lands that are prone to flooding. Within the serviced urban areas. The map on the right is a map of the entire county and shows the 4 Conservation Authority watersheds. So Maitland Valley to the north, Grand River to the east, Upper Thames to the south, and Sauble Bayfield Conservation Authority at the west. And the lines or the hazard lands, the Conservation Authority regulated lands are shown in the different colors according to the watershed. And in those areas, the policies say that developers will be in contact with the Conservation Authority to determine if a Conservation Authority permit is required. So that concludes the review of the policies. Here is where we're at with the public consultation process. As I mentioned, County Council received the document on December 21st. The document has now been circulated to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. The province is required to have the document for 90 days before the public notice of public meeting is circulated. We've posted the official plan on the new official plan website, and we have a FAQ on the website. So if there are frequent questions that are coming, we will post them on the website and then provide responses so we can start to see the questions that are being asked and provide information that way to the broader community. We have also provided copies to the municipal offices, so, and they are for viewing purposes, so people can come and have a look at the official plan and maps and background documents here at the municipal office. And as of tomorrow, they'll all be at all Perth County libraries as well. We had a good meeting with the official plan stakeholder focus group last week. I mentioned the FAQ on the website. We will be following up with the First Nations communities. There were letters sent earlier on, and we'll send the draft document to the First Nation communities now as well. I'm here tonight at West Perth Council. Next week, I'll be at Perth East or South. And then we have 4 open houses. As I mentioned, February 7th, we'll be here in Mitchell. February 8th in North Perth. February 12th, Monday, we'll be in St. Paul's, Perth South. And February 15th in Milverton and Perth East. We are also working on developing stations at the libraries so people can make comments there. From February to March, we'll be reviewing public comments, all the comments that we received through the open house or sent directly to the new official plan at perthcounty.ca email address. Then in April, we'll be circulating the notice of public meeting with an intention to have the public meeting at a regularly scheduled meeting of County Council in May. When the document is ready to be adopted by County Council will do so, and it will be forwarded to the province for approval. So that's provided to you for information purposes. And if West Perth Council now or in the future would like to make comments with regards to the official plan, they can be forwarded to the county, and they would be received at the public meeting. Thanks very much for the opportunity.
Okay, a lot of information, there, short amount of time. Are there any questions from council members? Councillor Foster?
For the agricultural designation stuff relating to woodlands, what's the policy if someone didn't contact before the timeline, but later on they're in violation or whatever, but it was never anything actually there? Like if it was misidentified, they never told the county it was wrongly labeled, what happens then?
Yeah, through the mayor, that they can come to the open house and make us aware of the property.
I meant going forward into the future.
Oh, into the future.
Like as if the county
Oh.
notices they think there should be a bush somewhere, there's not, there never was one.
Right.
What happens in those instances?
Yeah, okay, thanks for the question. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the question, the natural environment policies are with regards to development. So if somebody wanted to get a building permit on a property where there was an agricultural zone in the zoning bylaw, there are no studies required. If somebody wants to build within a woodlot, there would be and a planning application is required. An environmental impact study may be required. If there is a site visit and there is no woodlot there and the property is zoned natural environment, then a zoning bylaw amendment application would be required to change the mapping, to correct the mapping, and no environmental impact study would be required.
So this is only really for building applications. It's not relevant to general use applications.
It's relevant for planning applications
Just
in
planning,
particular,
yes.
like development. So imagine a woodlot within a settlement area and it's designated natural environment and someone wants to build a residential subdivision, that woodlot would see a level of protection. So if someone wanted to take that woodlot out, then an environmental impact study would be required at that time to evaluate whether or not there would be any negative impact from removing the woodlot. Does that help?
Thank you.
Other questions? Deputy Mayor?
Thanks, Your Worship, through you. Thanks, Susanna, for the report. As the mayor said, there's a lot of information in that report. Wondering if you could go back to section 2 to highlight in particular the land, the future land use identified by Watson for residential as well as employment lands, highlighting highlighting the future, the demand for future, future growth and, in West Perth in particular. I just wanted to make sure that councilors understood what the implications were for future growth and how it, related to the consumption of land going forward. Yeah, I think, there was the employment land, and then if you back up one, there was the residential land supply. I just wanted, could you highlight for us how much more land will we be needing to use in the next 30 or 40 years, according to the Watson report, as it sits now?
The number on the right indicates the amount of land that is currently designated in the draft new official plan. So that is based on the projections in the comprehensive review with regards to the land needs in Mitchell for a 25-year planning horizon. Does that answer the question?
So, okay, so in the future, we're going to need 98.3 acres, and currently we have a supply of 101.8 acres, if I'm reading the chart correct. So we're a little bit overstocked at this point.
Yeah, it should, like for Mitchell, it essentially is as the Watson report has predicted the need for a 25-year planning horizon. And then Audrey, if you go down 2 slides, this section 2.3, so monitor changes in forecasted population and employment growth on an ongoing basis, is a policy direction in the official plan to check in on this every 3 to 5 years. So Watson has prepared a 30-year growth projection with a 25-year planning horizon, and we've incorporated a policy, or the official plan has incorporated a policy directing the county to check in on this every 3 to 5 years and see how it's working.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
And at the same time, there's also a direction for intensification. So, and the idea would be is that intensification target would also be monitored. Like there's an acknowledgement that, you know, what planning is trying to do is establish a balance. Perth County is a valuable agricultural area. Growth of settlement areas consumes agricultural areas. So as there is also a housing crisis and a need for housing, what the intention of the policies is doing is acknowledging how much land is required for a 25-year planning horizon, asking the development community and the community at large, the decision makers, to monitor intensification and the density of residential development and check in on that regularly to see how it's going. And maybe we will learn as we go along, and maybe there will be opportunities for improvements to the policies.
Excellent. I couldn't have said it any better myself. I
very
appreciate you going into that detail, because that's important. It's an important focus for our council going forward, as it will be for our fellow municipalities in the lower tier across the county. So that was one question, and then had a supplemental, if I might, your worship. Going back to Councillor Foster's question, where if a piece of property has been, I guess, misidentified as natural heritage, you mentioned that the zoning bylaw amendment process would then be initiated. At whose expense would that process be initiated? Would it be the landowner that has to pay for that amendment application?
Yeah, this is a great question. So through you, Ms. Mayor, the 2 things. One is, after the official plan is adopted by County Council and forwarded to the province has the opportunity to modify and approve or simply approve. Then the municipalities have 3 years from the date of the provincial approval to update their zoning bylaws. So the zoning bylaws, the zones in the zoning bylaws will echo the designations in the official plans. Like the analogy I use is like stacking dolls, like those little Dutch dolls where one goes in bigger one and then a bigger one. So the biggest doll is the provincial policy statement. The next biggest doll is the official plan. And then the little doll in the middle is the zoning bylaw. And the zoning bylaw is applicable law for the Building Code Act. So that's when someone comes in to get a building permit, the building department is looking at the zoning bylaw. So the official plan is establishing the policy framework for the zoning bylaw. It's a policy document, and the zoning bylaw provides zones. So that's the first part of the answer. The second part of the answer is, in the case where someone where there's a natural environment feature on a property, and sorry, with the question that Councillor Foster has asked is, there's a natural environment designation on a property, and somehow that's been altered, and somehow that the property owner didn't respond to the public consultation process. And in fact, it's not there, and they want to build in that specific site. Like if there is an agricultural zone on the property, that area could be considered as a building site, as opposed to the area where there's a natural environment zone. That any cost for addressing that mapping would be the property owners.
Once the zoning bylaw has been amended or adopted by the municipality, but between now and then, any landowners that feel they've been missed by the original notification through mail out, they still have a chance to go back to the county and attempt to rectify their situation. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? I'm just gonna ask, before I go back to Councillor Foster, I'm gonna ask if Nicholas has any questions. I can't
No,
see.
yeah,
So,
no, thank you, Mayor McKenzie.
Okay, Councillor Foster?
My question was, there was intensification targets as well as a minimum requirement, it said. What happens if the minimum requirement is not met?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Another great question. It's a target. So that's something that will be reported on, and then the document is considered to be a work in progress. So through regular reports on the monitoring targets, there may be a decision by future policymakers to direct more intensification, but the target is a target.
Deputy Mayor again?
If I might supplement that answer, Your Worship, that question, Councillor Foster, was raised by county councillors. So that's something, it's been noted as something that county councils requested to take a deeper dive in that and how to put more teeth, to quote one of the county councillors, put more teeth into that part of the proposed official plan.
Okay. Any questions on this side? We're good? Okay, I do want to thank you, Susanna, for that. I know there's a lot of information there. It'll take a little time to mull it all over and take it all in, but we do appreciate your presentation. So I do have a recommendation here, and it's that the Council Municipality of West Perth receive the draft new Perth County official plan report for information. We have a mover and seconder, Councillor O'Donnell, Councillor Harold. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. So just while we're on planning, just give you a bit of an update. Land Division today dealt with the severance that we had at our last council meeting, the Van Newland severance in Logan. And it was not, there was no decision made on it. If you remember, I think it was John that presented that here. And there was a little jog in it to take the second driveway out. The Van Newlands had a problem taking that out. They would like it left in. So it was kind of left, sent it back to planning for them to have a look at it. So it may change, the end result may change from what we saw when we had it here with our comments, but I just thought I'd update you. Yeah, there's the information there. So we had, there's another one closer up, I think, isn't there or not? Yeah, the one on the bottom left there, it shows in red mark, just move up a little bit, shows how we were gonna come in and the second driveway is right at the edge. And that's the only way that they can get back into the garage with his RV. And so he would like that left. So it's a fairly large severance, so we'll have to do a bit of negotiating, I guess, to see what we can come up with in the end. But I just thought I'd update you on that. Okay, moving on. I don't think we have anything from the chief building official or the fire chief or the librarian or director of operations at this time. So the next item then, 6.7, is treasurer, and it's the life cycle budgeting. So Brandon is here. Yes, sorry. Brandon, you can just, you've got the floor. You take it away.
Good evening, everyone. The life cycle budgeting report contains information regarding best practices related to analyzing asset life cycle events and the importance of their financial impact. Some of the examples within the report include the whole life cost analysis of a fire rescue truck and analyzing the forecasted replacement years of bridge and culvert structures. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Any questions for Brandon on that? Okay, do have a recommendation here, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dean from here on because we're starting to get into budget. And the recommendation is that the Council of Municipality of West Perth receive the life cycle budgeting information report. We have a mover and second of that. Councillor Duck, Councillor Chessel seconds it. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you, Bruce. Dean, I'll let you take the show here.
Okay, thank you, Mayor McKenzie. So we're going to pick up where we left off at the January 15th council meeting with terms of the budget discussions and deliberations. So before that, I believe our CAO had some opening remarks. So Greg, if you could, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here we are back for, I guess, our third go at the 2024 operating and capital budget. So wanted to thank council for their deliberations, and certainly wanted to thank staff for their work on getting us to this particular point. So we spent a good portion in the meeting, our first meeting, talking about what our goals and objectives were around looking at some of the longer term impacts and potential impacts and of our budgeting, and as well implications on our ability to pay for things like infrastructure. And we set out some goals in that first meeting and talked a little bit around long-term funding strategies. We talked a little bit about the use of development charges. We spoke a little bit about maximizing the leverage of cost sharing, and certainly we're focusing on our actual budget expenditures rather than looking at some sort of an arbitrary target. So I certainly like to, as I said, congratulate our staff and Wendy and her staff as far as our strategy going forward. We didn't have a chance at the end of the last meeting to sort of wrap up and sort of give you a sense of sort of where we were at as of the deliberation. I know Wendy's going to do that, and she's done that in one of her reports. So we've taken back some of the information that council and the decisions that council made with respect to the capital budget. We have a few more conversations to have with respect to that, and a couple more suggested strategies for us to have a dialogue. But certainly, I think we're getting close to where I think we need to be, and for 2024 operating a capital budget, and I think by setting some of those objectives up front, I think is meant for a healthy discussion amongst the council and amongst the staff. So, Wendy, I'll turn things over to you and do your thing.
If I might, Wendy, before you start, I guess to kind of tag on to Greg's comments. This is our, as a council, as a group, this is our time to speak up, if there's any questions or concerns. If there's something you're unclear or not comfortable with, this is the time to make it known now. I guess as we go through the rest of our presentations and deliberations, we need to consider what items, capital items we're willing to carry forward to complete in 2024, and can also consider where we are going to get the money from. We've had some of that discussion already at the previous meeting about the allocation of funding from the province and the federal government. So as Greg said, we're part of the way there, but to use the football analogy, we still have some work to do to get the ball across the goal line. So without any further delay, I'll turn over to Wendy and she'll talk to us about the 10-year capital plan.
So the 10-year capital plan, we kind of took a look at, basically created a document and allowed staff to kind of add their projects that they feel in the next 10 years would be coming due. Now, this document is a living document and it's our first kick at the can, we'll say, and so it's not perfect. And every year we will kind of put more projects, shift projects, just where priority needs. But it also gave us a bit of a lens to see what's coming up in the next 10 years. And you can see that in 2024 being 6.3, now that information has changed based on some changes, is one of the lower years. I think 2029 is lower and 2028, but there's quite a few years that are higher than this year. So just so council is aware, as time goes, the requests are going to come in as high as they are this year. So if we defer, it just kind of pushes it, stacks it on top of all those numbers. So yeah, basically the data showed us that the requirements averaging 5 to 6 million each year. There are a few years that spike. In 2026, there's the wastewater treatment, which we kind of talked about briefly in different discussions. The ice pad in 27, the water standpipe, and the landfill. So those are your spike years. We're definitely hoping to leverage senior grants to help offset that. There's also debt, and there's also, we can contribute now to make sure that we have funds available. 2026, it might be hard to come up with some of those numbers, but the plan is every year we take a look at this and see what the 10-year looks like, and then feel more comfortable with contributions to help smooth out those spike years. So in one of my reports, I did talk about kind of reserve contributions and some strategies, and we'll talk about that more in depth when we get to that report. But there is a low target and a maximum target, and there's stuff all in between. You'll notice in the reserve report, we're not contributing a whole lot to our reserves. And so it's a little concerning when you see years like 26, 27, 30, and 32. Those are going to be heavy levy years if we don't contribute. So if there's any comments or questions for the 10-year capital plan, I gladly take them.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. So look around the table. Councillor Duck, you had a question. Go ahead, please.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Drinkowski. Just the question I had for the old municipal building. It showed on the 2024 capital project is 250,000. I was thinking it was 200,000. Maybe I didn't misunderstand, or maybe I didn't understand it properly. But yeah, I was just curious about that $50,000 difference.
Just give me a sec. I'll look it up and I'll be able to tell you exactly what it is. Just getting the blue circle, so just give me a minute.
Mr. Chairman, what the council will see, I believe in the 6.7.4 report, is that it's going to be, that particular expenditure is listed in the copy that I have here as 200,000. So maybe there's a discrepancy, but it's meant to be 200,000, I believe, Madam Treasurer.
Yeah, this was produced probably back at the beginning, and then it got deferred, and then we made changes to the demolition. So maybe that's where that change is coming from. And yeah, I don't have access to the network, so.
You're satisfied with that information, Counselor Duck? Okay, thank you. Counselor Fournier, go ahead, please.
Through your worship, much the same sort of question, just a number discrepancy thing. I see that in one part of the document, I think it's on page 409, or so rather 419 of the agenda. It says the municipal drain relocation will cost $30,000 in 2024. And on page 409, it says it'll cost $50,000. Just wondering the difference.
Yeah, so at the time of printing of this, there's been changes to the drain relocation. And so because we didn't update this because it was already in print and didn't want to cause confusion with the 10-year capital plan, we left it as it was printed back at the beginning. So yeah, there's been a lot of changes since even the discussion on the 29th that would have changed some of these numbers. And so this hasn't been updated.
Okay, Counselor Rose, you're next.
Yes, when you had said that there is not a lot of money being put into reserves, would it be fair to say that it might be prudent then to try to limit the amount that we take out of reserves for different reasons? Because I know the money's there and it's very tempting to say, well, we'll just pull it out of there and then, levies are not going to go up, but you're just taking from Peter to pay Paul. Eventually there's a day of reckoning.
I think once, we're trying to establish a financial policy and investment strategy. And I think as we build these building blocks, that it'll eventually kind of summarize it all together. So, different reserves have higher balances than others. And when Brandon kind of presented the life cycle budgeting, some of those analysis on roads hasn't taken place to know the full annual requirement that's needed for roads. Roads is your biggest department. It has the biggest amortization. And I think once the data starts correcting itself and we're able to use the data to do analysis, we'll be able to make recommendations if that reserve has too much and possibly redistribute. But bridges is very low. So it could just be roads is high and bridges is low, but combined they're together is okay. I would say also my report talks about the contribution, your minimum should be your amortization. Amortization is your lowest amount because a lot of our assets have fully amortized. So that's more of an accounting thing that happens. The bridge is still in use, but what happens is when it pulls the amortization, once it's past its useful life, there is no amortization. So then it's not part of your annual requirement at that time because it's past due, it's gone. So then we look at annual requirement on a replacement value. And then those numbers are significantly higher. So it's kind of a balancing act between the two. It's a comfort level for council and what that strategy looks like, but it's going to take time to build these building blocks. And I think with the 10-year capital plan, reviewing your reserves, that plan will kind of show itself. So yeah, I would encourage contribution versus pulling out this time until we have those building blocks in place. Does that answer your question?
Okay, Counselor Vink, do you have any questions right now?
Yes, Deputy Mayor Trentowski, could I have some clarification? When I compare the chart in this 10-year capital plan and specifically transportation services. It looks fairly even there. But if I go back to just the previous report from Brandon, the 10-year, the life cycle budgeting report and specifically figure 2, where it has bridges and culverts replacement forecast and $6 million in 23, not too much throughout the rest of the 20s, and then 14 millions in 2030. How come there's a discrepancy between what we see in the capital 10-year capital plan and the bridges and culverts replacement forecast? Like, shouldn't those two be aligned, or am I missing something?
Great question. The forecast for the replacement values are based just off of the useful life assigned upon acquisition. Those things can change throughout time depending on how the bridge deteriorates, whether it's road traffic volumes or just general usage. So we kind of look at both sides of it. We look at how our assets are reacting to those changes, and then we're also looking at what they were initially set at. So when we can look at the history of it, we can decide, are we using the right useful life for our bridges, or should we extend that? Or should we look at other events that can kind of fix that? So those values are more of a guideline. They're saying, hey, these bridges are coming up for renewal. We need to look at them and figure out, can we defer them, or should we kind of, go down a different route and look at different interventions?
I understand. Thank you. Yep.
Okay, thanks, Nicholas. Councillor Duck, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. I just like to actually direct this into Darcy. Darcy, when we were doing our bus tour, we had talked at the rink, I believe, about the lines and the ice kind of reaching their. I understand that there's like a projected life cycle opposed to whether they're operational or not. But was the potential to replace the lines included in whether the arena or something in the compressor or condenser that I wanted to make sure that was kind of included in there, or maybe where it was.
So their expected useful life is actually this year. It's 50 years this year. But we would be looking to do that in the 2027, whatever we did with the ice pad, whether it be a new ice pad or refurbish the old, that's when the lines would go out. So as of right now, we did get them inspected. We don't see that they would break down before 2027, but they're definitely not brand new by any stretch. So that's where we're at right now, but we think we can stretch them to 2027 and have that decision made then.
Okay, Councillor Fournier, did you have your hand up?
One other item in here, it's the sidewalk replacement one. And I noticed that it is a number to be determined, but it's set as basically $50,000 each year for the next 10 years. But when I'm voting on spending money on a bridge, I know that I get one bridge, or a bumper truck, I get one bumper truck, but $50,000 in sidewalks is fairly nebulous. If I could have that in linear meters, I would actually have a better idea of whether or not I can tell people in Dublin, are they going to get sidewalks at some point?
So I think this document was prepared, or that portion was prepared by the previous operations manager. And since then, we've kind of looked at what that definition is. And I think a lot of it is kind of maintenance. So trip hazards, removing a certain section. As far as like overall sidewalk replacement, I'd have to see if he's got to be determined. It's like it's those sections and cost weren't available at the time. As far as location, I think, yeah, sidewalks to be determined. So the 50,000, I would say, is a straight up maintenance item.
CAO Borda, you had some further information?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we're in the process right now of when we do our roads needs study, we look at the maintenance and upkeep of our sidewalks. And I think Wendy, we have something like 37.8 kilometers of sidewalk within the municipality that are current sidewalks without adding anything new. So this particular number, this 50,000, really is to do, as we mentioned, I think at the last meeting, section repairs. So we're obligated to do inspections of all of our sidewalks, current sidewalks. on a regular basis. And so what we do is we look at them, and as you can well imagine, over time, they deteriorate over time. So we may end up, depending on what the winter weather is like, we may get heaving, we may get, frost, we may get rain, there may be, traffic accidents where, pieces of sidewalk get broken. And so we have to have an annual maintenance and replacement of certain sections of sidewalk that are damaged to keep us up, and so that we're not, so that they are in good condition, or just so that they can be rated, so we're not adding or putting people at risk by utilizing those particular structures. So the 50,000 is just for general maintenance and replacement as we go through and review the sidewalks. So we may replace, a panel on Frank Street. We may replace a couple panels on St. David Street. So that's what this $50,000 is used for and is put into our particular budget for.
And maybe to help kind of pinpoint where maybe the sidewalks in Dublin maybe is under where it says the Dublin Street reconstruction. So when they reconstruct a road, some of that costing may include sidewalks. I'm not sure on the pricing if that includes it or not. Yeah, it's kind of isolated on, it just says Dublin Street reconstructions. And then it's got an amount from 2025 all the way out to 2030. I'm not exactly sure what includes in all of that, but oftentimes in a reconstruction, the sidewalk is part of it. So perhaps maybe when you're thinking of sidewalk replacement in Dublin, it's built into that number. But we can definitely bring something back to clarify that.
Mayor McKenzie, go ahead, please.
Well, I know it was certainly the intent of our previous operations manager that there was 2 sidewalks, I believe, in Dublin that needed to be replaced. And I don't know where it is in the budget there, but I'm sure that he has that in there. Just as an aside, and Wendy, you're going to have to help me out here. The sidewalks, that 50,000, but we tender out how much, and it goes per linear foot, a sidewalk is going to be. Some years you can do more and some years you can do less, but last year, was it $3 and something a foot? Does that sound right? We'll get our bean counter here. He'll tell us.
Brandon's been kind of keeping track of some unit costs, so he's got that on his radar.
From the 2023 roads management study that we just received, we have sidewalks, concrete sidewalks quoted at $230 per meter.
Councillor Fournier, you had another question?
Yeah, it's sort of a question for our CAO. I generally like to go along with the whole council, but I do think from time to time I have to speak up specifically for my ward, because in Staffa is a very large section of our sidewalk on our main road, approximately a third of it, which has been unusable for the entire 10 years that I've lived in Staffa. It seems slightly odd that we would have some sort of inspection and repair and replacement schedule that happens every year, and that an entire third of one community's sidewalks would not be inspected or repaired or maintained. There's quite a sentiment in Dublin and Staffa that they are the somewhat ignored communities of the municipality, and I'm afraid that your answer somewhat deepens that sentiment, actually.
Mr. Chairman, through to the councillor, certainly from my perspective, giving information that I currently have, right, and that I'm aware of, that we do the sidewalk inspections, and I've been made aware of that through my work as sort of the interim operations director in the absence of us having a full-time one. So I do know when we do get the road need study, it does include some sidewalks in that. And I know that, and Brandon would have received some of the information about conditions of sidewalks over time, right? So we do have information about our sidewalk network. I can't speak specifically to Staffa, but it is, the information is reviewed and the data is collected. So that I can tell you.
Any further questions on the 10-year capital plan? Councillor Bink, did you have anything further?
If I may, Deputy Mayor Trentowski, I've
Go
heard,
ahead.
I've heard the treasurer speak about asset retirement obligations before. Is that included somewhere in the 10-year capital plan on monies for that we'd be owing for that?
So when we looked at the asset retirement obligation, this will be our first year through the process through the accounting standards. We did do an asbestos survey on our buildings. And other than that, that is our only requirement under the asset retirement obligation. When we looked at the policy, we originally thought that septics and wells may have been included in that, but through discussions with the other local treasurers, that would be upon sale or disposal. So the likelihood of us disposing a septic bed on our own, we didn't feel we would do that. And so it doesn't meet the asset retirement obligation. So currently right now, and also we recognize asbestos cement in pipes is one of our asset retirement obligation, but because there is so little of it and the cost of disposal is so small, it's not material enough. So essentially it's only our buildings that have asbestos that are currently in our asset retirement obligation. So it is not included in the 10-year capital plan because it is only small portions of the library, the old administration building, and the arena, and the storage facility at one of the cemeteries.
Thank you.
Anything further from councillors around the table? I guess I had a question and a comment. I'll start with the question. And it's just a general question for staff, like referring to the spike years. So there's a spike in 1 year where we're considering investment into the arena. That'd be 2026. There's another, or maybe I'm getting the years backwards, but I'll just list the projects: the arena, wastewater treatment plant, and the water standpipe. So you did mention, Wendy, that we will come back to this list at least once a year. And I'm wondering if we need to address this list more often than that, only because of the size and scope of the projects involved, the amount of money involved, the amount of planning required, and in the case of the arena, perhaps the amount of community involvement that might be required. I'm just concerned that in the case of the arena, if we're planning to spend money soon, that we're already too late in getting started in the process. And I'm thinking of the Listowel Arena. The process was started in, well, around 2012 or 2013, and then they had a new building up and running December 2017. So my question is just about the timing or getting the preparation work done and the planning, because there's design, there's public consultation. There's like, these projects will all be eligible, or we're hoping that they're all eligible for upper level funding from provincial and federal governments. They have their own timetables, they have their own submission criteria, and so on and so forth. So from that perspective, I'm just wondering or concerned about getting ahead of the curve and getting getting our plans in place to figure out what we want to do, cost it out, and then figure out how to pay for it. It's a budgeting exercise in and of itself. So I guess those are my questions or concerns. I'm just wondering if at this point, if you could shed a bit more light on that process.
I think that's one of the purpose of the 10-year capital plan was to kind of map this out and use it as a planning tool. And so it gives us that time to have a conversation about everything. I think the rec master plan is definitely going to address the arena, and that'll be its kind of platform. And then I think with the new, I'm not sure if I'm going to say it right, the DAF unit, and all those conversations, that's going to create a conversation on the waste water plant. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of conversations up to that point, but you're right, this document does provide some planning that we can get prepared for. Yeah, I would think that it's going to be part of our work plan. We're going to be bringing more information forward and strategies.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. Because I had on my own, when I read the 10-year capital plan, I had about 12 or 14 smaller items that I was considering. And I thought, well, I'm not going to bore council to death and extend the meeting past midnight going through all those smaller details, but just knowing that this is coming back again and again, that's important for council to know and keep in mind as we go forward. I'll just one more check for questions. So I just want one comment about communities feeling ignored in the municipality. I've heard those comments too, but it's not, this is going back to 5 or 10 years, and perhaps Mayor McKenzie and some of the senior members of council can attest to this. It's not done out of malice. Our OMPF funding has been cut how many millions over that period of time, and where we're doing our best to try and deal with that situation. In the case of One Bridge, the Connecting Link funding was withdrawn from the provincial government, but we were successful in lobbying to get provincial funding anyway. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we realize that there's work that still needs to be done, but it always seems like we have one arm tied behind our backs when we're trying to deal with these capital projects. And that's been the past history for one reason or another. And at least going forward, we have a bit more confidence in having a 10-year capital plan mapped out that we can try and manage these situations a little bit better, and hopefully to the better satisfaction and benefit of the community. So I just wanted to touch on that. So if there's no further questions, I will, I guess, ask that we move on to 6. Oh, sorry. There's a recommendation we have to do first for 6.73 2024 operational changes. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm getting going ahead here. So 6.72 2024 10-year capital plan. The recommendation is that the council of the municipality of West Perth receive the 10-year capital plan for information. So Councillor Rose, you move. Seconder, Councillor Duck. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Okay. Now we will move on to 6.73 2024 operational changes. Go ahead, please, Wendy and Brandon.
So from the changes from the 15th, we didn't get a chance to kind of discuss where we were at the end of the meeting, but we were at 10.68, which isn't that far from where we are today at 10.57. So the changes that were discussed at the last meeting made majority of the changes. So in this operation report, it kind of breaks down from the time we first met on budget, all the changes and the list of what's been brought in and what has been removed. So a couple items I just want to highlight on them is that there was an additional $43,801 added. This is a bit of a change in kind of, not change, but incorporating the PIL. So a PIL is a payment in lieu. The municipality gets to keep the education portion. And so just recognizing that in this budget, typically it hasn't been recognized the last couple of years. So anyway, that's where a majority of kind of the savings came from in this list. The other one is the SIP, which is the Community Improvement Plan, which will be discussed later on. And then the OMPF strategy of adding 100,000 to a reserve is in the operational change. If there's any questions on the items listed, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thanks, Wendy, for that updated summary of the changes that we've discussed at the previous meeting. Councillor Vink, do you have any questions?
Yes, please, Deputy Mayor Trentowski, specifically on the $100,000 towards the OLT legal fees. We haven't had a chance, I think, to discuss what that is entailing and what estimate or where this estimate came from.
Okay, I'm looking to Wendy or someone on staff to address that question.
I think originally it was in the budget at 150, just based on the consultation with the lawyers. And then there was some discussion about not as many hours that were possibly needed. So we reduced it down to 100,000. Other than that, I'll let CAO answer or make comments.
Mr. Chairman and members of council, so we have a matter that is before and is going to be going before the Ontario Land Tribunal, where we will have to be represented. We anticipate that our legal costs for this particular matter, in order to defend a planning decision that was made by this council, we believe that for 2024, that our obligation will be $100,000 for that particular action. And if there's any further questions, then I certainly can try and answer them.
Councillor Vink?
Yep, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, I was just on being as that I wasn't going to bring it up before, but at $230 a lineal meter, $100,000 would buy a lot of concrete. So going back to what I mentioned before about having situations coming up and having to make a judgment call on where the money is to be spent to the best benefit of the community, this would be one case in point, just to highlight that for what it's worth. Okay, any other questions from council? Don't see any. All right. So the recommendation is that the council, the municipality of West Perth, accept the operational change of $43,801 to be included in the 2024 budget.
Deputy Mayor Trentowski.
Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Vink.
I was wondering if it would be prudent to again wait on this recommendation until we get down to some closer to the bottom where we're actually discussing the levy for this year at 10.5%, because we might need or want to take out that very last line, that OMPF strategy at $100,000. Again, we should have a robust discussion because we took it out up at the top and then now put it back in at the bottom. And so I'm just not sure where you would like to have that more robust discussion, whether or not that is the direction that we'd like to go as a council.
Okay. What's your, I guess I want to get clarification from staff. 6.76. Are we not dealing with that as a 2024 budget item, or is that going into the future? Because we're talking about directing 100,000. So maybe if I could get some clarification on that. My understanding was we were going to discuss that item there, but Councillor Vink is suggesting we have the discussion now, if I understand you correctly, Nicholas.
Yeah, because in my mind, if we're going to recommend and accept these operational changes, well, that OMPF strategy is included in these operational changes in this matter of the 24 operational changes. So then we wouldn't have the opportunity to discuss it further down when we are already agreeing to it now.
CAO Borda.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman and Councillor Vic, we can, if with council's consent, we can not act on the recommendation at this particular time for 6.73 and move on down the agenda and come back to this item if that's the wish of council.
Okay, I'm looking around the room to fellow councillors. Do we need a motion? I'm looking to the clerk as well. Do we need a motion to that effect, or what should we do here?
We would just proceed with the agenda, Mr. Chair, and then go back to the recommendation following 6.7.6.
Okay, so if we don't need a motion, then I'm looking to councillors if they're willing to proceed in that direction. Here's that we are. Okay, thanks, Councillor Vink, for pointing that out. So we will defer making any motion on operational or on that portion on operational changes, and then we'll move into 6.74 capital projects.
So we incorporated all the January 15th recommendations, and there's a few others to highlight. So in the report, it talks about all the items that have changed. Just to highlight, we did add an additional 100,000 for development projects, and in that capital request, we are recommending that it comes from reserve. We're not sure how much in development is going to come forward, but those would be agreements that we've already committed to, and those invoices that are coming in. And so just to, as a safeguard, just so council's aware, to put 100,000 down in the budget and then draw it from reserves if needed. So I'm not sure we'll use that line item this year, but just as it just saves us coming back to use it, just to have it approved at the budget level. So that's that one. We did look at the landfill, and just as we restructured accounts and had the salary plan, which looks after all the salary and wages, we've been kind of noting ones that have wages built into the line item, and this was one item that we identified. And so we reduced it by 20,000. And then this Carter Schoonerwood Memorial Ice Rink valuation has increased, and there's no levy impact. And so those are the changes. If there's any questions.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. So this is the meat and potatoes of it right here, if I say that. Any questions for staff on that? I can't see your screen, Councillor Vink, so I'll ask you first if you have any questions.
No, thank you, Deputy Mayor Trentowski.
Okay, any questions or comments from the rest of council? No? Going once? Twice? I guess so can you just remind us, Wendy, what the levy's looking like with all those numbers in?
Yeah, so that was in the levy impact report, is that we're sitting at with everything in, including the OMPF. We need to raise an additional 1,775,566 or 10.57. increase. That would be your rate. And then in that report, it talks about that increase on the median household is $167.22 for the year.
Okay, thank you. Just looking around the room because this is the time to, if there's something that somebody wants changed or altered, this is the time to speak up. Councillor Fournier?
This seems like kind of a small thing, but when Darcy was talking about his arena stand heaters during our last council meeting, I couldn't help you be a little bit worried for it, because with 2 working and 1 broken, I mean, if 1 more goes down, it could be really, really cold in some parts of that building next year. I'd like to have some assurances that if it does break, we can at least buy him another one as quick as possible. It's, as I say, it's a small item, but I'd like to know that we can do that if we need to.
I believe that's the Darcy. I believe it's still in the capital budget, is it not?
Correct, and I can update since the last meeting, we now have 3 working and 2 that are missing that are out of order. So this would put all 5 back, but we do have 3 currently working.
Okay, anyone else? Mayor McKenzie, go ahead,
I
please.
just have a comment, and I have to get Audrey to roll back to how it's broke out, the assessments broke out for farmland and residential and that. That was back a couple slides there. Just had it there not that long ago. There it is. Yep, right there. And I guess, you know, I may be selfish with this comment, but you know, farmland or tax on farmland was never meant to pay for all the services that we're talking about. There should be more on the residential. And it's just the way it is. I'm not, you know, I'm not complaining, but I am that a lot of the stuff that we're doing is going to be put on the farmland instead of on the residential and the even the commercial, and you know, the real estate pays, or the industrial rather, they pay a fair share. But you look at residential at 167, and you look at farmland, vacant farmland at 253. So that's my comment.
Okay, thank you, Mayor McKenzie. Anybody else? I guess that the only observation I could point out is similar to Mayor McKenzie, that the current economic climate that the community's in, I'm just concerned that the levy would be higher than what the community could withstand at this time. There's mixed signals from the marketplace as to whether things would get better or stay the same or decline again, but it seems to be either stuck in neutral or things might backslide a little bit. That would be the only comments or observations that I could offer at this time and still retain my neutrality as the chair. So. Councillor O'Donnell, did you have anything? No, Councillor Chessel.
I guess I just have a general question about this Carter Schoonerwood Memorial Ice Rink. Is there a partnership agreement or a service club that's going to run it every year, or is that going to be put on to us to run? And I just want to make sure it's run up to their standards in the future, so I don't want it to go by the wayside if it's not being run properly every year.
Yeah, we're working with a committee with that. I would put it up close to like our ball diamond committees, that they will run it, but we will oversee it to ensure it is to our standard. Our staff will assist in little areas where we can. But until the project was approved by council, I haven't gone too far to get exact standards and an agreement in place, but that will be part of the process going forward.
That's fine. Counselor Chessel, okay. Counselor Harold, anything further? Nothing? Counselor Phelps? Nothing? Counselor Rose? Nothing? Counselor Foster? No. Counselor Fournier? No. Counselor Duck? Okay. Mayor McKenzie?
Just one thing, and I'm trying to find it here. And it's with regards to Ketterson Park, and I did talk to Darcy about it, and I don't know whether he's followed up or not. But I think in comparison with the improvements that we're doing in Fullerton Ballpark, they are coming up with 50% of that cost through a reserve that they had, and we're matching 50%. And I think we should treat everybody equal. And I would think that with Peterson Park, with the lighting improvement, and I can't find it. Oh, there it is. I just found it. The LED lighting upgrade, we're putting in 30,000, I believe. So we're putting, they've come up to half then? I'm just saying that we should treat both recreation facilities the same, and that I think the Ag Society should come up with about half that funding for that particular project to match the same that what the Fullerton Ballpark people have.
Yeah, I have no issue talking to the Ag Society. I haven't gone that far. I was waiting to see if that was the will of council, but there's two ways to go. We can either say the $20,000 project, they come up with 50%, or the project goes down to 50% of the set, or another 50% of the 7,500. So it would be a $15,000 project rather than a $20,000 project. We could go either way, but if council is looking for the Ag Society to come up with 50%, I can definitely push that, and we can change the numbers accordingly.
And I guess I'll go one step further, because I don't know the financials of the Ag Society. And if it's a situation that they're unable to afford it this year, then I think we put that project on hold until next year and bring it forward again with the funding. We're not saying no. I think we're just wanting treat everybody the same and have the resources there.
Yeah, I think if that's a recommendation from council, we can definitely do that and bring that back with the results when we bring back either the bylaw or another report. At the next meeting, we can have the results of that. It's obviously not going to affect the levy huge, but I see the significance of it, and we can definitely do that.
Counselor O'Donnell, go ahead.
So through the lighting here, who replaces the lights at the Ketterson Park now, like the ball diamond lights, and who do we share it with? Darcy?
The municipality does the Ketterson Park lights.
And we cover 100%.
Correct.
So
we take 100% of the
cover 100% on the Ag and Fullerton, or where do we come up with the other half for Ketterson?
I think the revenue for Fullerton also sticks with Fullerton, and I think the lighting for the parking lot project would just increase. There would be a little parking lot increase lighting, but mostly it would just be for the Derby or the fair event. So I think that's where the division is. It's the Ketterson Park revenue all comes to Ketterson Park, so therefore the municipality takes all the expenses. Fullerton, Cromarty, some of those other ones, they take the revenue and then the expenses go as well. So the municipality helps out. It's more of a 50% agreement, but that's my best explanation of how that works.
You're okay, Bill? Okay, thanks, Darcy. Mayor McKenzie, were you entertaining a motion to make an amendment on that budget item, or what was your wishes there?
Yeah, we could do that. Like, I think Darcy was going to explore and maybe Phil knows what their finances are. I don't know, but yeah, I think, I think it's only fair that we treat both institutions the same, and they should come up with 50%. We're expecting Fullerton to come up with 50%. I think they should. What you wanted?
Well, because I'm
Want
looking
a
at,
motion? Is
well,
that what you're looking at? I'll move that.
if you're willing to, if you're willing to put forward a motion for
Sure.
amendment, then
I would move that we ask that they come up with 50% of the cost. That- Direct staff to ask, yes.
have you got something captured there for us, Audrey, to present to council?
Mr. Chair, the motion would be that the Council of the Municipality of West Perth direct the Director of Community Services to consult with the Mitchell Ag Society to receive additional funding for the LED lighting project.
Can I add to that? And if they're unable to match that this year, that we, that project towards 2025. Is that muddy it too much?
The only clarification I would ask is that it's to 50% of the project, so that everybody's
Nice,
on the
nice
same
and
page.
simple, Darcy. Yes.
I'll give our clerk a chance to rejig the wording here.
Mr. Chair, so the full motion is that the Council of the Municipality of West Perth direct the Director of Community Services to consult with the Mitchell Ag Society to request for an additional funding of up to 50% for the Kitterson LED lighting project upgrade, and that the project be deferred to 2025 should the Mitchell Ag Society not have enough funds to make the contribution.
In 2024.
24, yes.
Yeah, okay. That's looking, Mayor McKenzie, you're okay. But you're willing to make that motion, your worship, okay? So Mayor McKenzie has moved that motions for an amendment, a seconder. Councillor Duck seconds it. So, okay, any further discussion? Councillor Foster.
Does the Ag Society keep all the money from the functions they run then? If we're treating it the same as Fullerton?
Phil, do you know?
This year the municipality ran the bar, so we only got the 35% out of it, so the municipality covered the rest.
But as far as the gate receipts for the demolition derby and the
I don't know about
yeah,
the
whole
grounds,
fair-
like, do they
whole
rent the
fair
grounds?
weekend, that goes to the Ag Society.
Yeah, under agreement, we charge a fee as far as staff time to set up and clean up. It's around $2,000 for the fair, but the revenue from the gate and that stuff that stays with the Ag Society. We don't take any of that other than the $2,000 that's under the agreement with the Ag Society for the fair.
Okay, thanks, Darcy. Councillor Vink, I need to check in with you. I can't see your screen. Do you have any questions or comments?
Not on this motion. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Trentowski.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Second call? Third call? Final call? Okay, I will call the vote. All those in favor of the amendment as presented and read by the deputy clerk regarding the lighting at the budget line item for lighting at Ketterson Park. Those in favor for the amendment? Councillor Vink, how do you vote?
In favor.
Okay, then it's carried unanimously then. Thank you. Okay, so that's I went around the table on capital projects. We've made an amendment to the one line item on the lighting. So the section.
Deputy Mayor Trentowski.
Yep, go ahead.
Would this be an appropriate time just to review the Ketterson Park batting cage rebuild as well too?
Well, if we're going, as I mentioned before, if we're going to discuss it, this is the opportunity. So you want to bring that item up as well?
Just for review, if that's okay with you. Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Could we hear from staff again, some of the reasoning behind this rebuild and the need for this rebuild?
Wendy or Darcy, could you answer that, please?
Yeah, I can do that one. Yeah, so when we built the new Ketterson Pavilion, we built it where the old batting cage was standing. So we tore it down. We talked about it at the Ketterson Park Master Plan. We knew there would have to be a movement of the batting cage due to the new pavilion. So it was kind of an agreement with the softball organization that we would re-put it up. We were hoping to do it within the project, but obviously with contingency and stuff, we weren't able to do it, and time-wise. So we have moved the actual building, and the operations staff were good enough to put a pad. So the building has moved over, but the cage has to be re-put up and built so it can be used again. I know from last year, a lot of conversations, they did really miss the batting cage as part of their training, and they're really eager to get it back up. So I'm definitely advocating for the project, but that's the history behind it.
Okay, thanks, Darcy. Anything further on that subject, Nicholas, or what are your thoughts?
My thoughts would be I'd like to use some reserve funding that we've set aside for this, specifically saved up for times like this in reserves to put into this asset rather than putting it on the levy.
Did you have a specific amount in mind, or what?
The entire amount, please.
Okay, so the entire amount was 55,000?
Yes.
So are you willing to put that into a motion to amend that item?
Yes.
Okay. So your amendment suggestion is to finance to retain that item, Ketterson Park batting cage rebuild, capital investment of 55,000, but to finance that through the applicable reserve fund, correct?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay, I guess I'd have to ask staff which reserve fund would apply, but I think Wendy's going to tell us here shortly.
Nicholas, did you have a preference on what reserve?
I don't know. Thank you.
We do have a general facilities. We do have tax stabilization that has leftover surplus in there.
General facilities.
General facilities, so that would bring it down to roughly 104,000.
So you're suggesting general facilities then reserve, Wendy? Okay. CAO Bordeaux, you had something?
Just as a, thank you, Mr. Chairman, just as a, something to ponder here. You know, what was brought forward by staff is our concern related to our, you know, the lack of contributions to reserve. And I believe Councillor Rose brought that up earlier in the meeting. We're not sufficiently putting aside monies for reserve. Specifically, we're not putting a lot of money for reserve for recreation and recreation types of projects. So this would, Madam Treasurer, I think you said 104,000 was in this one reserve. So it would reduce that particular reserve to less than half. Okay, 100. Oh, I would reduce it to, I'm sorry. I would reduce it from 159,000. And so we do have some concern about what was raised earlier about the utilization of reserves without contributions to reserves. So I just reiterate that particular point that the councillor had made earlier.
Okay, thanks, Greg. So Nicholas, you're still willing to put that amendment forward?
I am, yes, because I believe that we have saved this money in reserves for times like today, the money in reserves, I have said before, is becoming worthless in this inflationary period that we've had over the last amount of time. So in my mind, because we don't have a plan yet for many of these reserves that we're getting there, we still haven't decided on an asset management plan that whether we're going to go fully funded or cash funded. And so I'm just trying to strike a balance. I think we've saved money for these kinds of occasions. So I'd like to use the money at this time that we've have had saved because it is becoming worthless sitting in the reserve.
Okay, Wendy, go ahead.
We make significant investments with the money that's sitting in reserve, which offsets your levy. So currently we generate over $400,000 in interest. And so that also contributes to the reduction in the levy. If you spend money out of the reserve, it does reduce that. I know this is a small amount, but in principle, we are looking at using those reserves for asset management purposes. So this being, yes, it's an asset and it was replaced. The fund itself, there's not enough, I would say, in the facilities to protect your asset management plan. So if you were to take all your buildings, you're basically saying 100,000 is enough to replace your buildings, and that's not enough. I would then maybe, if reserves are still going to be used, maybe switch it to tax stabilization because it's last year's surplus. But again, we would like to protect the reserves and build an asset management plan and make contributions.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. Well, before we're sliding into debate here and we're still trying to figure out what the amendment should sound like. So I'm going to go back to Councillor Vink. Based on what Wendy said, are you still willing to put forward your amendment? But what are your thoughts on Wendy's comment about funding it through stabilization rather than the previously mentioned facilities reserve?
Yeah, that is just fine with me, Deputy Mayor Trentowski. Yes.
Okay, so I will ask the clerk to read out that motion. And then once she's read that out, I'm going to look for a seconder. And if there's a seconder, then we will engage in the discussion. So go ahead, please, Audrey.
Mr. Chair, the motion before the floor is that the Council of the Municipality of West Perth Director of Treasurer to utilize $55,000 from the General Facilities Reserve to fully fund the Ketterson Park batting cage rebuild project.
I
My
believe,
apologies, the $55,000 from the tax stabilization reserve.
okay, thanks, Audrey. So Councillor Vink, you will make that confirm, you'll make that motion into that effect?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Foster, you're willing to second that? Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. So now the motion is on, the amend is on the floor for discussion. Councillor Foster.
What's the average rate of return from our investments, like from our reserves?
I'm gonna guess that right now, I haven't looked at the bank rate, but I think we're about 5 or 6%.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Councillor Fournier, you had your hand up earlier? No? Okay. Oh, Mayor McKenzie, go ahead, please.
I guess this is maybe a Darcy question, and we're struggling here to try and figure out how we can pay for all this stuff. And I realize that we were the ones that took the batting cage down to put up the pavilion. But I'm just wondering, would there be any assistance from minor sports to help, with part of this refurbishment of the batting cage?
I have not asked, but my personal opinion with the conversations that I've had, probably not, to be honest.
Okay, thanks.
Counselor Duck?
I was just gonna touch to Darcy's point. I don't think the Mitchell Mountain Sports Board is in a financial position at the current moment to do that. But
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Just looking around the table, any more questions or comments on this amendment? Counselor Fournier?
We sell advertising in the arena. Can we sell advertising on the batting cage?
Darcy?
I imagine that could be explored, but we are still working on selling advertising in the pavilion as well, so there's only so much we can advertise in that area.
Thank you. Anything further? Final call? Counselor Phelps, go ahead.
Doris, when we did the pavilion over there and we tore down the livestock barns, and then we built an area for livestock washing and that for the fair, and that didn't wait, did it? That was part of the deal.
Correct.
All right, so we are leaving, to refresh everybody's memory, we are leaving the item in there. It's just a question of how it's being funded at this point, so. Okay, final call. Seeing no more questions or comments, I will call the vote. Those in favor of the amendment? Those opposed, Counselor Bink, how do you vote?
Yeah, in favor.
Okay, so show of hands here again, please. 2, 3. Okay, those opposed? 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, so I actually get to say something. I will vote in favor of the amendment. Carried. Thank you. All right. Okay, so this is the final call for any more amendments on this portion of the discussion, 6.7.4 2024 capital projects. Once, twice, Councillor Bank, anything else?
No, thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, so closed. All right, so then I'm going to, we have a recommendation before us. 6.7.4 2024 capital projects recommendation that the council of the municipality direct the treasurer to include the 2024 capital projects into the budget, and that council approve the 1.7 million and $1,707,501 required for the capital projects to be funded from the levy as amended by the 2 previous amendments just made regarding the lighting and the batting cage.
So those numbers will be less. Are we dealing with the reserve report? And the OMPF for that solution?
Well, we haven't discussed those yet, so so should we discuss those items first then?
Oh, sorry, I'm jumping all over the place.
Oh, all right.
We're on, sorry, my
I'm
apologies.
at 6.7.4.
Yeah, my apologies.
So we'll need a revised total then?
Yeah, can we pause for a minute?
Okay, why don't we call a recess so that we can get the revised figure for that recommendation and subsequent motion. So it's 9:14. We'll reconvene at 9:24. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're reconvening at 9:29. Back to, if I could have everyone's attention, please. What point of order, if I could have everyone's attention, please. We're going to get back to, item 6.7.4, 2024 capital projects. And, I'll ask, our deputy clerk to read out the amended recommendation.
Mr. Chair, the amended recommendation is that the Council of the Municipality of West Perth direct the treasurer to include the 2024 capital projects into the budget, and that council approve that the $1,650,001 required for the capital projects be funded from the levy.
Okay. That's the recommendation that's been presented after lengthy discussion. So I'm looking for a mover to, someone to make a motion on the floor. Councillor Fournier, you had a question?
I think that number needs to be reduced by 55,000 because we're paying for the lights from the levy instead of from the reserve instead of levy.
Wendy, that the revised total does include that reduction?
That reduction and then an increase in contribution from the Egg Society of $2,500.
Okay, so there's no change to the motion that was read then, okay. All right, so that's the recommendation. Is there anybody willing to make a motion to that effect? Councillor Foster, you're willing to make a motion? Okay, yeah, Councillor Foster makes a motion to that effect. Is there a seconder? Councillor Fournier, you're willing to second the motion? Okay. So any further discussion or comment on that motion as read? Councillor Vink, I'll check in with you. I can't see.
No.
your screen.
Yeah, no
Nope.
further discussion for me. Thanks, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, all right. Final call before I call the vote. Seeing no further questions or comments, then I will call the vote. Those in favor? Councillor Vink, how do you vote?
Yeah, in favor.
Okay, and that motion is carried then. All right. So we're on to 6.75, the 2024 Reserve Budget Report. Wendy and Monique, please.
So that report just kind of highlights where the reserves are kind of at a point in time. So just to note that the 2023 year-end entries have not been made. And then included in the reserve is the OMPF strategy of 100,000 to a reserve called Reserve for Grant Stabilization. And then for the 2024 budget cycle, this is without some of those changes that were made today. The overall withdrawal from reserves is 561,337 plus the additional 55. And then we're contributing 670,516. That does include self-funded departments, water and wastewater, which are making contributions. So if there's any questions on that, I gladly take them.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Vink, do you have anything?
No, thank you.
Okay, don't see any questions here, Wendy. So the recommendation before us is that the council, the municipality of West Perth receive the 2024 Reserve Budget Information Report. Moved by Councillor Harold, second by Councillor Chessel. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? I believe that's carried. All right, 6.76. This item is the 2024 Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund allocation, and I believe this is what Councillor Vink had alluded to earlier. So I will turn the floor over to Wendy to go through that item, please.
So at the beginning of the process, we kind of identified a strategy to look at slowly moving the OMPF off the levy and start moving contributions into reserve so that if this funding were to shrink or no longer exist, we would be prepared. In the past, we've had quite significant amount of cuts and just a strategy to protect ourselves. And in the budget that's been presented, it has been included. Yeah, open the floor for discussion, questions.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Vink, I'll check in with you once again, please.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Trentowski. Would this be an appropriate time to kind of sum up where we might sit at the end of 23 before deciding whether we put this money away in 2024? So I couldn't find in any of these documents where the 2023 projected surplus or deficit might be and how well or not well we budgeted last year. Would this be an okay time, Deputy Mayor Trentowski, to ask that question?
I don't see why not. So your question is, you're curious to see where
I wondered if we had an estimate of the 2023 surplus or deficit and how well we budgeted last year before trying to make a decision on this $100,000. Are we going to be under or overspent in 23?
Okay, Wendy, could you take a stab at that, please?
I'm gonna say it's too early for us to comment on where we'll be. I know we're looking at preparing a variance report in the coming council meeting, so at that time we'll be able to review some of the projects. I know some of the capital projects were under budget, but they used grant funding, so we've leveraged that grant funding because it carried forward into this budget year. As far as the other line items, we definitely have seen some extra growth in tax. So there is that, but there's also added expenditures. So this time I would say it's too early. I will say though that we will be doing our audit in March. So we will have surplus finalized definitely May, June, earlier than it has been in previous years.
Councillor Vink, anything further?
Well, is it okay if I comment, Deputy Mayor Trentowski?
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, then I think it's also too early to make a decision to start putting money away to supplement this OMPF. Too early because we don't have our asset management plan finalized. Too early because we don't have a plan for reserves. So putting an extra $100,000 away without a plan on what we might be using for, then I'm going to say it's too early to start this process. While I think we need to consider this in the future to be self-sufficient if we ever do lose this this funding, I think it's too early to start this this process without everything else figured out, especially and you mentioned before some tough economic times that this would need to be paid for out of taxpayers dollars without a plan to use it. I think it's too early to start this process.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Vink. I'm looking around the table to the other councillors. Councillor Rose, do you have a question or wish to say something?
I guess it's just more of another comment that I'd have. I don't think it's ever too early to start putting money away in a savings account. Because we know we have some heavy debt coming up. Any little bit we can save, I think, will come in handy later on when the big debt does come. I think we'll be glad that we did due diligence and put everything away that we could. Just my comment.
CAO Bordeaux, go ahead, please.
So just to, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just for members of council, just to, the report sets out a pretty dire situation that we've dealt with since in the last 10 years. So in the last 10 years, this community has had to pay and pick up almost $2 million in funding that it used to get, and that money is on the tax levy. And so we're trying to come up with a proactive strategy to do income replacement. And right now, this almost $1 million that's coming in, which is being reduced and will be continue to be reduced, will have to be made up somewhere and somehow. And we're really concerned about the impact that it could have on services and level of service here in the communities. That's why we're looking to do a proactive strategy, as we talked with council 2 meetings ago and the last meeting. And so certainly we're again advocating. That's why it's back here. We're advocating that this be a part of it and be a part of that strategy so that it can be included in our 2024 budget review. And certainly we're trying to, it's our hope that we can sort of finish up, if we can this evening, our 2024 budget review and with the council. So if there's any questions, certainly Wendy and I would be pleased to take any of those from council.
Okay, are there any questions with either what CAO Bordeaux or our treasurer Wendy McMurray has brought forward on this matter? Questions? Councillor Mink, do you have any more questions?
No more questions. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. So there is a recommendation here that the council of the municipality of West Perth approve the $100,000 OPF. I'll say that again. Recommendation that the council of the municipality of West Perth approve $100,000 OMPF funding be directed to reserves to start the initial strategy to remove the reliance of OMPF funding on the operating budget. So that's the recommendation that's before council. So Councillor Duck, you're willing to move that as a motion? You are. Councillor Rose, you're willing to second that as a motion? Okay. So the motion's on the floor for further discussion and comment. Looking around the table. Councillor Phelps, go ahead, please.
I think the bar graph that they prepared is a clear picture of what's going on. And I think if we'd look back and started this 10 years ago, we wouldn't be having this discussion about these shortfalls in budgets. We would have been prepared when things are good, and now when things are tough, it is a tough decision. But moving forward, if that money's not going to be there, I think you got to be proactive, not reactive and stuck behind her. Then, as I said, you start losing services, and we want to at least maintain what we have.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Phelps. Those are points well taken. Councillor Foster, go ahead, please.
I think when we're looking at one of our largest levy increases probably in my lifetime, which hasn't been all that long. But it's as long as West Perth's been around, more or less. Putting another 1% levy increase on for planning for the future for when we're in the rainy days, kind of seems like we're sitting in the rain, at least the last couple of weeks we have. It seems kind of like it's going over and above what's necessary. So maybe I recommend maybe a reduced amount going forward when it's as rough it is currently for the tax levy.
So yeah, right now the motion on the floor is to add 100,000 or to include 100 or to approve 100,000 funding be directed to reserves right now. Councillor Mink, did you have anything further?
I'll just say that I don't think we are able to afford it this year. And respectfully, it was demonstrated last year that the provincial government even gave us more year over year than they had, and then they have also committed in 24 to give us the same amount again. it may be in jeopardy in the future, but as of right now, the provincial government is standing with the $500 million that they're funding to all of the rural and northern municipalities again this year.
Okay, thanks, Counselor Vink. Any further comments or questions? Okay, looking around the table, don't see anything, so I will call the vote. All those in favor of the recommendation, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 opposed. Counselor Vink, how do you vote?
Opposed.
Okay, that's carried. Okay. Yeah, so we've dealt with item 6.76. Now we need to circle back to 6.73, the 2024 operational changes. So Wendy, could you put us back onto that spot, please?
Yeah, so that motion doesn't change based on that resolution. So the total operational change is 43,801. We're looking for direction from council to include that.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. So the recommendation is that the council of the municipality of West Perth accept the operational change of $43,801 to be included in the 2024 budget. So what's council's wishes? Councillor Phelps? You're making a motion you're moving that, seconder? Councillor Rose seconds the motion. All right, any discussion or debate? Don't see any hands up across the table. Councillor Vink, did you have anything that you wanted to say at this time?
No, thank you.
No, okay. Last call. All right, and I will call the vote. Those in favor? Opposed, if any? I believe that's carried. So, all right, so we are to so now we're into 6.77 2024 levy impact. The numbers have changed. The numbers in the agenda as published have changed now subsequent to the discussion we've had here tonight. So I'm looking to someone from staff to read out what the new recommendation will be now.
So the new recommendation will be that the council of the municipality approve an operating capital budget as presented with a total levy requisition of $11,192,506, which results in a levy increase of $1,018,066, or a levy increase of 10.01, which also equates to a tax rate increase of 10.34. The tax increase typically is lower than the levy, but this year, because of the shift in assessment, you're seeing it higher just from that shift. And so we can also, based on Optus data on the median properties, the average residential house assessment, 141,000 would be $158.53 for the year. Farmhouse would be 107.22, and the farmland would be $240.56. Commercial small office building would be $89.40. Commercial retail would be $117.29, and industrial would be $380.43. That's based on the median assessed value for those properties. And if you want the 100,000, we could do that too. I think that, you want those? Just like those?
Sure.
Yeah. So for every 100,000 in residential, you're looking at $65.77. So that'd be the same for farmhouse. Farmland, for every 100,000 in assessment, you're looking at an increase of $16.45. And then commercial, $82.02. Commercial retail would be the same. Industrial is $129.53.
What was the farmland number again? I didn't quite hear that.
Farmland was $16.45 per 100,000 in assessment. The median, farm assessment is $1.4 million. Approximately.
And could you maybe just explain that concept? How the levy, like you said, there was a shift in the assessment where the levy, the tax rate is higher than the levy. Can you maybe explain that a little more in depth, please?
Yeah, so back in December, we ran through a growth report, and there was a substantial amount of, we'll say those 50 properties that we recognized last year that were sitting in residential. Those have primarily come out. We still have 12 properties, I think, left in that change. And so there was a shift from the residential to farm. And so because farm has, it's 25% of the residential rate, there's a shift because one's discounted and one's not. So residential is getting hit higher. So the growth that we would have seen, which we did have, is kind of lost in the math when it shifts between the classes.
Thank you. All right. So that, I guess we've read the recommendation, and Wendy's explained the revised or what the impact is on levy and tax rate. I'll just ask the clerk to reread that motion one more time, please.
Mr. Chair, the motion is that the Council of the Municipality of West Perth approve the operating and capital budget as presented with a total levy requisition of $11 million, $11,192,506, which results in a levy increase of $1,018,066 or 10.01%, and that council directs staff to prepare the budget bylaw.
Okay, thanks, Audrey. That my mistake. That was a recommendation, not the motion. So that's the recommendation put before council. So what's your wishes, council? Councilor Rose? So you're willing to make a motion to that effect? Okay. Is there a seconder? Councilor Phelps, you're prepared to second that motion? You are? Okay. So we have a mover and a seconder. So we move into discussion or debate. Looking around the table. Mayor McKenzie, go ahead, please.
Well, it's just a comment, and I think everybody knows what it's going to be. Certainly, it's certainly higher than what I would like, but we've looked at this thing from every which way, up, down, and sideways, and nobody's come up with any suggestions that had the support of all of council. So, as they say, it is what it is.
Okay, thanks, Mayor McKenzie. Councilor Vink, I can't see your screen, so I'll ask you if you have any Any questions or comments on this
I'll-
motion?
I just point out that the levy has increased by more than 40% in the last 5 years and 50% in the last 6 years when we look at that. So that's a significant burden to put on to taxpayers.
Yep. Okay, thanks. Counselor Vink, anything further? I guess I would concur with Counselor Vink's sentiments as well as Mayor McKenzie's, but we're in a situation now that and we've been through this situation before, that there's a cost and a consequence for everything. There's a cost and a consequence for action. There's cost and consequence for inaction. So we have to weigh, measure, and divide which set of consequences we're most prepared to deal with. Having attended the Roma conference here last week, it does not appear that the situation's going to change. The provincial government is focused on growth and expansion. And I think we're at West Perth, we're feeling the pressures of that growth and expansion. We've always prided ourselves on trying to budget reasonably in a prudent fashion. But sometimes there's situations you can't control everything. You can only manage it. I guess I'm thinking back to a previous employer that said there's certain situations that can't be totally controlled. You can only manage it. This is the best that we can do right now. And judging from what I've seen around the council table, and I've asked everyone's opinions or asked everyone to weigh in on their opinions and comments, and they've given them. So I know staff has done a very thorough job of reviewing numbers and analyzing our situation and our needs. And there's some confidence that we can put into our staff that they've done their homework to bring us the information that we need to come up with the decision. So as the mayor says, it is what it is, and we have our work cut out for us to manage ourselves and adhere to the decisions that we made. So that's all I can comment on at this time. So we have a mover and a seconder. And we've had discussions and debates, so I'm looking for the vote. All those in favor? Councillor Vink, how do you vote?
Opposed.
You're opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. And I believe that concludes the budget portion of the meeting. So again, I want to thank our staff for their high level of engagement and attention and preparation. It's a very important function that our staff has to undertake, not only at budget time, but throughout the year, to keep on top of the numbers and track the numbers as they emerge through the year. So I thank staff's involvement, participation, not only finance department, but all of our departments. And as I said before, we have our work cut out for us this year and the years coming ahead. So I'll continue to work together and find solutions to the difficult challenges that we have every day. But within every challenge, there's an opportunity. So let's try and be positive in the face of adversity. So with that, thanks again to my fellow colleagues on council for their participation and engagement. And I will turn over the meeting to Mayor McKenzie.
Okay, thank you, Dean. All right, we'll try and wrap this up. I know we still have a closed session to do as well. So next item is 6.8.1, and I believe Dan is online to walk us through this one. It's Community Improvement Plan. So
Thank you,
Dan?
Your Worship. Good evening, Council. Sorry I couldn't be there tonight, but before you is the request for decision for RFP 04 2023 or the Community Improvement Plan. As council may recall, this is an action item out of the Housing Action Plan adopted by council, and as well, we've without luck been trying to time this to Housing Accelerator Fund application announcement, but as you see in the report there, unfortunately, we don't have any more information on that at this time. We had two submissions for this, and you'll see the RFP scoring results below. They were fairly close, and we are recommending that this be awarded to the highest scorer and not the lowest bidder. And the difference there is about $2,000, but there was some things in the highest scoring proposal that set it apart a bit, particularly on the proof of ability scoring side. As it was noted again in the report, this wasn't in the draft budget, and part of that again was us trying to time this, but we did identify it in the changes report you saw tonight to the tax stabilization reserve. If there's any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them.
Hey, any questions for Dan with regards to that? I don't see any. Okay, the recommendation is that the municipality of West Perth award the RFP 04-2023, the Community Improvement Plan to Standeck Consulting for $30,000, excluding HST, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign and seal all necessary documents. Got a mover and seconder for that, please? I gotta look over here this time. Councillor Duck and Councillor Rose. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. All right, moving on. I don't think we have any CAO. We're good for now. Closed session maybe. Correspondence, nothing. Council reports, nothing at this time, I don't think. We have a bylaw. Bylaw number 4, 2024, excuse me, being a bylaw to repeal and replace bylaw 63, 2023, a bylaw to establish and require payment of various fees and charges for the municipality of West Perth. And that recommendation is that we give first and second reading to bylaw number 4, 2024. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Foster, Deputy Mayor Pinkowski. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. And finally, that we give third and final reading to bylaw number 4 this 29th day of January. Mover and seconder for third reading, Councillor Phelps, Councillor Harold. Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. All right. Announcements. I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. There was, just so you know, that I don't know where I wrote it. We'll come back. We did have a number of delegations at the county, and I think I had totaled up to about, there we go, about 6. We had the delegations either through the county or through the Western Wardens with the Minister of Immigration Training and Skills. Some met with the NDP party. We also met with the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of the Attorney General, the Ministry of Solicitor General, and the Minister of Transportation. So certainly more delegations than what we would normally see. So the one that Monday was a very busy day going between hotels with delegations. Upcoming events, next council meeting is February the 5th. And as Susanna mentioned tonight, the Perth County Official Plan, the public open house, and I would recommend that you drop in just to see what's going on. February the 18th, Guns and Hoses Hockey for Perth County OPP and the fire services. Trying to think, the last time it was in Mitchell was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, I was just going to mention that. Yes, and the fire department. So, Family Day coming up on the 19th, so the council meeting will be the following day on the 20th. The 23rd is Community Registration Day, and that's with regards to Sports, Darcy, do you want to talk about that, or Audrey? I know Audrey mentioned it to me that I was to mention it.
Yeah, I think both the clerk's department and rec department are working on it, but it's gonna be a open house for all registrations of all types. There'll be groups representing the hobby club, the arts and crafts, to all the sports, to all the community groups looking for volunteers. We're opening it up to everybody. We're hoping to do a kickoff to our rec master plan that date too. The staff from the rec master plan will be there to ask some questions, some surveys, that kind of stuff. So we definitely want to promote the day. So if you know of anybody that should be there, that please make sure you know that that message gets out, and we are hoping to have a big day.
Thanks, Darcy. Oh, question?
Yeah,
Sorry, Dean.
thanks, your worship. So Darcy, could you, I guess, tell us and the public that are viewing, where the registrations are being held and how are we advertising, the registration days between now and the day of the event?
Yeah, I guess the location is quite important. It's gonna be at the arena at the community hall, and it could be even in the Morenz room, depending on the amount of tables that we need. And we will be, we'll be advertising throughout our social media, all over. We're gonna be starting a web page for the rec master plan. It'll be advertised on there as well. But you will see it, everywhere very soon.
Any thought of putting a print ad in the newspapers, or what's the thought there?
I think we will, attempt to put a ad in the newspaper for sure.
Thank you.
I think you get as good a mileage on the sign too, like, yeah, that catches a lot of people. All right, the final thing is 29th, I believe it's Jerry Sykes' birthday, but it's also Perth County Business After 5 at the River Valley Tube Slide in St. Mary's, or just outside of St. Mary's. Notices of motion, I don't think we have any. Other business, I don't think there's anything at this time. Yep, Dean, go ahead.
I guess through you, your worship, one question. Given the timetable for the official plan, the open houses are coming up. We've had our presentation tonight from planning, Perth County Planning. The open houses are, public open houses are scheduled for February. Will the official plan come back onto our agenda at some point to West Perth Council for general discussion? At some point after the public has had a time to digest it and before the Perth County meeting, before this is discussed at the public meeting at Perth County Council in May, I believe it was.
Mr. Mayor, through to the deputy mayor, we can attempt to ask the question of the county. I don't believe that they've advised us whether they're going to do another round of consultations with municipalities after their public consultation process ends, but we can ask the question.
I guess through you, your worship, I was just wondering if there was if us as a council were going to discuss the issue and share any findings or observations that we garnered from the public or even from our own investigation of the official plan, and take that forward to Perth County in any shape or form.
Through Mr. Mayor to the deputy mayor, let us have a conversation with the county to see if they're willing to come back, and then we can put forward a bit of a game plan for council at that particular time.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that, because the official plan is very significant impact on everybody, and it's not every day that official plan is discussed and is up for discussion. So I just wanted to seek some more clarification or insight on that. Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we do need a closed session. Don't expect it will be very long, but motion here is that the municipality of West Perth proceed into closed session at 10:09 for the purpose of addressing a matter related to litigation or potential litigation with regards to water, wastewater. So a motion to go into closed session, Councilor Rose, Deputy Mayor Chmakowski, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, we're carried and we're into closed session. don't hear him.